One night, parked this time up by the Victory Garden wasteland where the street lamp was closer on the cedar top, he watched the raindrops on the windshield make shadows on her chest, thin trails that hesitated and fell as his fingertips traced and tried to stop them there and there. She had dear little nipples like rabbit noses. She let him kiss them, suck them, until she said in her breathy, undutchy voice, "Ow, Owen, enough, baby," and touched his head the way the barber did when he wanted it to move. Sitting up, he made circles with his finger and his saliva around her nipples, softly round and round, loving the sight of them so much that he felt dizzy as the parallel shadow of raindrops faintly streaked her chest and the backs of his hands. She never touched his prick. It was too scared, too potent. They pretended it wasn't there, even when their bodies still straightened at the angle permitted by the front seat and its heater-crowded foot space. And he held her buttocks through the rumpled skirt and pressed himself rhythmically against her, all the time their mouths kissing, until he came in his underpants. Where the dried jism made a brittle stain he later picked off with his fingernail, hoping his mother wouldn't notice when she did the wash. Yeah, you can hope, but we see these things. His sense of sexual etiquette was primitive, gleaned from the way men and women acted in the movies, up to their huge close-up kiss at the end, and from enigmatic dialogue in a few books like For Whom the Bell Tolls and Forever Amber and A Rage to Live, the Amboy Dukes, and he had looked into them from a pornographic poem that Marty Natsviger's brother, Jerry, a runty, curly-haired kid in Owen's class, could recite if you paid him a dime. But it was developed enough to ask, after such climax against her compliant body, "What can we do for you?" This embarrassed her. Elsie liked to pretend that what had just happened hadn't happened at all. "How do you mean?" she said. This made him shy in turn. "I mean, just holding still for me isn't enough, is it?" She said, "We can't do more, Owen. There might be consequences you don't want." Yet there was more. Both knew it. And as his senior year ran out, they groped to find it without committing sin so dark and final their lives would be forever deformed. Elsie was less afraid of this than he. He refused to test how far she would let him go. It had become their way in the car for him to bend over and kiss the silky, warm inner sides of her thighs, and then press his mouth as far up as he could into the warmth, her warmth. At first she resisted, pushing at his shoulders, and then she came to expect it. In those days, even teenage girls wore girdles. The crotch of her underpants was guarded by edges of stiff elastic, and though she shyly edged her hips forward in the car seat, his lips could not quite reach the damp cotton. Not that he knew enough to make her come with his mouth, or how girls came at all. The pleasure was his in being this close to a secret, in having her yield it to him, even her fragrance, which was strong enough at times to exert a counterforce, a wish to pull his face away. But he loved it there between her legs. And how hot and sticky his cheeks grew against her thighs, and the graceless awkwardness this maneuver asked of her, still wearing her knee socks and loafers. The summer before he went off to MIT, their experiments took on a desperate edge. She knew he was slipping away. The baton had not been passed, after all. Owen had got a summer job on a surveying crew, tending the target marks and chopping brush out of the sight lines. Elsie had been to the scent of a Lutheran camp in Ohio, where she was a counselor for 6 weeks. He would get rides with the crew to far corners of the county and have to be fetched when he could not hitch a ride south. He would come home exhausted and dirty and tried not to think of college in a foreign region, was swooping down upon him and would carry him away for good. He both hoped and feared. After Elsie returned from Ohio, it seemed almost too much to work to take a bath in a farmhouse's one tub and go out again into the dark. He and she needed the dark now. With the freedoms they had granted each other, she needed such privacy that even a distant street light, or the remotest chance of a willow cop with a flashlight and barking voice, could not be borne. Where could they go with their maturing needs and fears of eventual desertion? His summer had not been so distracted that he had missed the implication, in her letters from camp, that she had found companionship with the boy counselors or the gossip, when in August she had returned that while he was cutting brush in future housing developments, she was to be seen at the township public pool, lounging in a two-piece bathing suit, on a towel in the grass, with another boy, a boy her age, in her class, who would be there with her after September. "My father owns 100 acres of woods not that far from Brentstown," she told Owen, after an hour of directionless cruising one evening. "There's an old road in. Nobody ever comes there." "Sounds perfect," he said. But did it? He let her direct him, turn by, turn on narrow roads that he'd never driven before. He was frightened at the road entrance with its no trespassing sign and rusting remains of barbed wire fence. There was a sandstone boulder that with his summer muscles he rolled 5 feet to the side so they could get by. They were in the fragile old back of the Chevrolet that his father, mocking his own poverty, called the Fiver. As branches raked the creeping car's sides, Owen felt guilt, yet less than if it had been his father's Chrysler, which was so shipshape and Simonized. A litter of cans and wrappers in the headlights revealed that others had been there before, also pushing aside the boulder in their strength of desire. The road was rough, the old car rocked. Suppose they broke an axle or got a flat tire. The scandal, the disgrace would stain his charmed life forever. "Isn't this far enough?" he asked. He felt a trap closing behind him. "It goes in for a long way, but it gets worse," Elsie admitted. He turned off the ignition in the headlights. Such darkness! It pounced upon them with an audible crackle. It locked around the windows as if the car had plunged into a black river. As Owen's eyes adjusted, he saw a star or two high in the windshield, in the spaces between the great still trees overhead. Occasional headlights on the dirt road half a mile away twinkled. Elsie's face was a mere glimmer in the cave of velour, rubber, shaped steel, and shatterproof glass. His lips found hers, and they were full and moist, but the old melting one mouth into another met impediments, things he could not put out of his mind. Suppose the Chevy didn't start when they wanted to go. Suppose he couldn't back it out on his overgrown road, the bushes a solid mass behind them, and he without the machete he used for the surveying crew. He felt life a silent vegetable life, enclosing them on their father's land, this man present in every leaf and reaching branch. Owen was still very young enough to invest in the darknesses without spying presences. They distracted him when he should have been purely bent on the treasure at hand, in the deepest privacy he and Elsie would ever know. It was August. She wore shorts and no girdle. What a surprise. As their embrace gained ardor and flexibility, her crotch came into his hand as if rising to it. She lifted her hips on the car seat so he could slide her shorts down, though his clumsiness, her white underpants came off with them, and Elsie did not try to grab them back. She seemed to stretch, elongating her belly. Even in his darkness, he saw wet gleams upon her eyeballs like faraway fireflies, and the pallor of her long belly descending into a soft shadow. Frightened of that shadow, he turned his attention to her breasts, with a touch more practiced than her underpants. He unhooked her bra and tugged up her short-sleeved jersey. She crossed her arms and pulled the jersey the rest of the way up, over her head with her bra.